We are aware that chasing snow around the globe
Maybe I would try this one.
and exploring its most wild of spaces can be a dirty business. Inevitably, we make an impact on our world and its resources. Travel is a necessary part of the adventure, and we definitely have a good time along the way. But we also have a responsibility to this planet. With the help of our friends at Bank of the West, who are redefining banking for a more sustainable future, we are creating balance. The carbon footprint of our travels and adventures while filming for this project have been offset. Burton and Bank of the West are committed to maintaining that balance to ensure that we can all find new lives around this one world for generations to come.
So thanks everyone for joining me today. We're here to discuss the making of Burton's film One World, the impact that making a movie can make on nature, and how we can help manage that impact. I'd like to start by introducing everyone on the call right now. First, Zach Nigro, Senior Global Brand and Athlete Manager for Burton Snowboards and One World's Executive Producer. Next, we've got Alex Adrian, Burton Senior Video Creative and One World Director. Next up, Aaron Blatt, Photographer, Creative Director, and One World Producer. And last but not least, Danny Davis, Burton Team Rider, POW Alliance member. And my name is Morgan Bennett, Integrated Marketing Manager at Burton Snowboards. Hey guys, thanks for joining me for this Sea Change panel.
Yo, buddy.
So, welcome to the table.
What's up, Morgan?
Glad to have you guys. So, first question, I want to ask for the filmmakers. It's been 8 years since Burton's last full feature. Why did Burton want to make this film, and why did you guys decide to go the full feature direction?
We really wanted to make something that inspired a bunch of snowboarders to get out and ride and kind of give the opportunity to the riders to show the riding and, make something that rooted us in snowboarding.
Yeah, and I think from a rider perspective, like, we hadn't made anything in 8 years. So it was just kind of like, yo, it's time to put the cameras on the boys and gals and get some clips. And really, I think it's too for us, it's fun to make a team movie. And it's sort of something that we can all pour our time into together. A lot of us are doing contests, working with some of the other brands we ride for, whatever. So this thing's really a nice way for us to like feel like we're tight and connected and that we're kind of like all doing something together.
Yeah, Danny, is it different than filming for your own part? Is being part of a team project a different experience?
I think depends. Yeah, like in this situation, way different than filming for a part. Sometimes you're with one or two other riders when you're just kind of focused on your own part. And this kind of felt way more like the more the merrier in a way. We had big crews out in the backcountry, good amount of cinematographers, good amount of riders. And we were at times doing kind of separate stuff. And, it's a good way to just stack footage when a lot of us are doing contests. But when you're out there doing it as a team, it feels definitely different. I mean, I was filming a real snow this winter. It felt way different than doing One World. That's for sure.
For sure.
It's a cool way to bring, Burton is within snowboarding a pretty big brand, and we're spread out in a lot of different ways. And it's cool to bring everything back together. We have our athletes that just do contests. We have our athletes that just ride in the streets, and we bring it all together in one project and really showcase like the breadth of snowboarding and the community around it for us, which it's cool to do. And it's a shame it took 8 years between projects, but whenever we do it, it's cool, and it's a big moment for the brand. So
It was something
Yeah,
Jake was
actually.
behind too. You know, I know we all kind of like, we're like, Jake, can we make a movie? And he was like, hell yeah, if that's what you guys want to do, let's make it happen.
Yeah, definitely. I kind of want to ask about that. You know, this was a big year for us to connect on an emotional level. You know, what inspired that? What was the purpose of sort of connecting on that emotional level? Bringing up Jake, you know, obviously that weighed really heavy. What was the emotional message that we were trying to hit with this?
I think one of the biggest things with this film that we wanted to do was like Zach said, it's a celebration of snowboarding and just all the good times that go along with it. And you know, it was an emotional year for a lot of levels, for a lot of reasons. When it started, we didn't know what all those reasons were. But just a pure act of, you know, really putting snowboarding on a pedestal and showing the best of it and the good times and the friends that are along with it, I think automatically made it emotional. And yeah.
Definitely felt like it was needed.
Yeah.
Blatt, question for you. What goes into picking locations for a movie like this? You know, is it mostly just chasing snow, or are we really trying to set a tone with One World? I know like Newfoundland might not be a snowboarding mecca on everybody's radar, but it was super memorable. So what goes into making those kinds of location decisions?
From the start, we really wanted to put a global perspective on this project. There's so many team riders all over the world and so many locations that you can snowboard. And Zach off the bat was sort of inspired by some of his travels over to Japan or elsewhere. And there were so many team riders that also had those feelings about spaces that they had been in. So we wanted to showcase the world, which fits the bill, as you can tell with the name. In terms of making a snowboard movie, you might start with some conversations with the riders that are going to be in it and discuss options, but you're always going to be held to the weather at the end of the day. So Newfoundland, for example, received that outrageous storm, and it was super easy to make the call for a crew to go out there. And then in other examples, like going to Jackson or Japan or Alaska, you're kind of just like, you know, you're likely going to go to those places. So you're set up with objectives when you get there, but it just depends on the weather when you make the call to go.
So, a lot of last second travel is what it boils down to.
For sure.
A lot of last minute flight booking or driving for
A lot of mileage.
a lot of mileage. And like, I mean, a big part of it too plays into just sometimes the schedules of that. From my perspective, some of the athletes, like we all got together in Jackson. We came from, I think, Dew Tour, went to Jackson for a couple weeks, drove back to Colorado for the US Open. So it was just, sometimes you're just in the flow, and it happened to be good for sure. And in Wyoming, but you know, that dictates sometimes too, how quick and how far you need to go.
I would say like probably 80% of it wasn't planned. And there was probably, we did like a few shoots, like spring shoots, summer shoots, for example, that were more focused around planned shoots. But most of it was chasing snow and following the weather and really looking at the weather and figuring out who was available and, you know, driving towards finding good snow.
So lots and lots of travel.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's kind of the elephant in the room. You know, snowboarding for a lot of us, it grounds us in nature. It's our connection to the environment. But traveling for snowboarding, filming can have a pretty big environmental impact. What do you guys see as those, you know, obvious challenges to making a snowboard film like One World and trying to, you know, and trying to have a smaller footprint? What are the hurdles?
I mean, the travel, chasing snow necessitates travel. All of us are obviously enthusiasts of being in the mountains and being amongst nature. And at this point in history, travel requires burning fossil fuels for the most part, whether you're driving, getting on a plane, or using a snowmobile to access terrain. Helicopters burn jet fuel, and they're all causing a negative impact. In that sense, we're also showcasing these beautiful spaces. And I think for the most part, many of the riders and people that are involved with Burton are also involved with organizations donations, etc., that are allowing us to move forward and get past the use of fossil fuels, and also be super aware, as with this project, of what we're doing and how we can mitigate it.
Yeah, I think it's good to share the places that we're enjoying, and kind of create this this idea that that's been going forever, and that these places need to be protected. We need to kind of like do what we can to sort of green up our lives a bit, but then you have people like Mikey Rents and Solers and all them, where I don't know if they flew the entire year. They stay home in Canada and they explore the mountains in their province and provinces next to theirs. So they're driving more. But, I think the first time that I really, started to explore the Sierra, the Sierra Nevada, more than like North Lake Tahoe, and how much there's a lifetime of terrain out there that you can walk to, snowmobile to, drive to, what have you. So it's double-edged sword for sure. There's people out there, chasing the close snow, but when you have objectives in mind, like Alaska or Japan, and you have these dreams of places you want to ride, you definitely have the cost of carbon.
For
Definitely
sure.
like a bit of a, there's two ways to look at it, and also looking at it at the size of the project. We had we have a big team. We wanted to show a lot of the team, and people have tight schedules. So for smaller projects, it's definitely, easier. You see some projects of, people all like self-propelled type of things, which is really rad. But for a project of this scale, the travel was pretty necessary. And given just the amount of time we had to put it together. So it's not always what we want to do environmentally, but we are definitely conscious of the impact that it has. So,
and it's not always the easiest thing to talk about either. But
no, it's kind of
you're calling yourself out a little bit, which is always good, humbling. But that's where we get lucky that we can kind of take some steps to mitigate that a bit, and have people like Mikey and that crew staying where they are. There's a lot of people traveling, but we do what we can where we can.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this season pans out with COVID. People are staying put more than ever, and I think you're going to see a lot of people getting deeper into their own terrain, deeper into their own zones, which is pretty exciting. I think that what comes out of this season is going to be very unique, very different from what we've done in the past.
Yeah, I think I see a lot of people, it sounds like the foot powered access into the mountains is really popular right now. I mean, the stores near me are out of snowshoes. Their rental fleets are like rented every day, things like that. So it seems like people are getting out and they're wanting to be just out away from people too, in their own zone and stuff like that. So it's very cool that people are getting out there and trying to connect a little bit more. It sure seems like it anyway.
Definitely. That there's a hierarchy from man-powered, sled, car, plane, all the way up. So it's pretty interesting to see all of the interest behind splitboarding right now. Danny, has your approach generally in snowboarding changed much as you've kind of been more aware of your impact? Have you shifted a lot into more man-powered, sled-powered? Has your connection to and your awareness of your footprint changed your approach?
Yeah, I think more so in life, a lot of things in life, some choices within how I just live my life a little bit more. But, at the end of the day, if we use some sleds to get out to a zone and we come home and we've burned 1.5 gallons to 2 gallons of fuel, we burn that in cars quite often. And not that I'm saying that that's just fine, but it is part of the commute for us and stuff to get into the mountains sometimes. But I'm drawn to the foot powered stuff because of the terrain it gets you to. A lot of terrain is wilderness and you can't drive in there, you can't fly in there, whatever. So we're walking, and I think that stuff is really fun. It's a different kind of mission. It's a different kind of amount of fitness and just like strength to get out there, being a half pipe rider and going contest to contest to contest. Diving into that side of snowboarding is just becoming a little bit more adventure-y, and it's feeling pretty fun. And it is changing my approach to just how I maybe travel all season. You know, I've been on 2 flights this whole year. And if you asked me that last year, that was not the case, but I've only, you know, it's just a different kind of year. And I'd say the pandemic has taught me a little bit more about flying and staying put and how I feel about those differences.
For sure.
Good to be home. Very nice.
I've definitely seen more of Vermont this season than any other year, just by being based here and not really traveling. And I found some insane terrain I didn't know existed. So I think we're all benefiting from that a little bit.
Yeah, slowing down just a little bit feels good.
So
Sure.
despite our best efforts, you know we have an environmental impact. We know that's part of the cost of playing. One of the tools that we've used in One World to address that has been carbon offsets. Danny, I was hoping you could, you know, as our POW Alliance member and resident environmentalist, can you explain like what a carbon offset is for people who maybe aren't familiar with the concept?
Resident environmentalist. That's scary to be one of my titles on a call. The way that I understand it is, you know, to dumb it down for myself even, is, you know, planting trees and spending money and making sure that these trees get planted, not just chucking a seed in the ground or whatever, but actually cultivating and making sure this stuff grows. Your money is sort of going towards planting trees in various places. I know these guys can fill you in on the company that they worked with, but carbon offsets are basically paying to burn carbon by planting trees. You know, you're kind of donating money to sort of offset that a bit. And I think it's better than doing nothing. And that's for sure. A lot of people will tell me that, you know, that's so you just get to burn all this carbon and you get to pay for it because you guys have money. And it's like, well, we could not, and we could just leave it the way it is. But I do think it's a positive way to spend some money. And when you can do that, when you have the privilege and the ability to be able to do that, it's a worthy move. And I know that you do feel a tad better by doing it. At least personally, haven't done it. And POW has a great calculator on their website. Protect Our Winners has a really good calculator, carbon calculator, that you can punch all your stuff into. And you'd be surprised at how much you're burning and what that kind of offsetting is, and how you can, you know, there's a lot of information you can find on it. I think it's better than doing nothing. That's for certain.
Absolutely. The number from One World, 563 metric tons. Zach, how did you guys go about calculating that? Danny mentioned some tools that he has online. What was the process internally to identifying that number, and then understanding sort of next steps to how we picked a strategy on helping to remove that carbon from the air? What was the process?
Yeah, we were pretty calculated with all the trips that we went on. I mean, we were tracking basically where everyone was going, including the media team and the athletes, and looking at all of the trips and calculating like whether it was driving there, flying there, sled mileage, helicopters, snowcats, anything like that to put on a shoot. Anytime we burned fuel, we were calculating that, and we basically added it up. The sustainability team at Burton, Jen and Emily, worked closely with the production team and myself to calculate all those you know, numbers and basically put that together. And then we started to work with a partner, Pacama, actually, to calculate the offset and plant trees, which was awesome. One of the things that you mentioned before, Danny was mentioning, was Protect Our Winners. They're a close partner of ours, and we started to work with them. Actually, we went, I think, Danny, I think you and I and Aaron were on that trip together. They do these Protect Our Winner kind of summits where it's a lot of educational, and there's opportunities to meet people where like-minded people or companies that have similar initiatives, or they have similar purposes or values to be sustainable and to work on things like this. And that was actually when I met Bank of the West at that summit. It was pretty cool. Their CEO spoke and did a really powerful, lecture on what they were doing and what was really happening in the banking industry. And I was super inspired by it. I actually ended up sitting next to him at dinner that night, and we started talking, and I was, met him. And then further down the road, sustainability is such a centerpiece of Burton. Like it's really a part of our core values, and it's something that we take pretty seriously, like whether it's manufacturing product or putting on an event or doing a film project. In this case, we wanted to make sure that we were doing our best to be responsible, right? And it was actually funny, like I ran into the folks from Bank of the West again in Vermont, and we started talking about the project, and they were like, let's partner on this. We'd love to help out. And we kind of came up with this idea of calculating, everything that we were doing for the extent of the filming and of the project, and making sure that we bought the offsets. And so it was pretty cool. It was really interesting, like, lots of spreadsheets and numbers, but there's a particular trip that I think was really cool. Danny and Aaron, I believe, both went on it up to Alaska, and we started to work with Pakama, who is responsible for the forestry project and planting the trees and whatnot. And they had a location in Alaska, so it was like a pretty quick instant, like, oh, we're up there, and we were using a helicopter up there to access terrain. So it was something that kind of added up and felt organic, and someplace that we really cared about. So we ended up working with them to plant trees up there. I think 300 and something trees were planted, which was pretty cool.
I got the number 318 right here.
Nice.
And I think what's cool when we kind of did all that effort to take account of what did we do? What did we, what is the number, and I think that's really cool to do, because in Burton fashion, the next time we do make a movie, because I know Burton's going to make some more movies. Let's do this. We can better we can try and, make some goals to be below that, and really try and figure out some creative ways to, because really, not burning it is great. And how can we cut down on that a bit and stuff? And I think there's ways we can do that. So taking account of it is kind of the first step. And then I think we can hone in from there and make some goals to drive it down and do some good on planting trees and stuff.
It was interesting too. Like, you just made me think of, like, it's the calculation is hours and mileage based, like, and we went as far as, we did a shoot up in Oregon at Mount Hood, and we had, 2 or 3 snowcats pushing piles of snow. And we actually just worked with the cat drivers to just create a log and figure out, like, hey, like, just log in how much time we were using, and then worked with our sustainability team to be able to figure out kind of the burn on the fossil fuels on that, and then understand that. So I think Danny's point's, valid. It's just like, how can we, do less than that next year, or the next time that we make something, and be conscious of that. Because I think that was a big point for me, was seeing it, written out, rather than just not even thinking about it. It was more top of mind. So you're thinking like, oh, whoa, that took this much time and used that much resources. And it really made you aware of what was going on. So that awareness piece, I think, is super crucial in everyone thinking, Danny mentioned the POW calculator and whatnot. Like, it's a cool resource to be able to just say,
it's an interesting tool.
Yeah.
Very interesting tool to have.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you start counting is when you start to take note. And you have a baseline to compare to, right? It really does change the way you see all of this. So, you know, helis, sleds, cats, planes, was there anything that you guys were like surprised got included in the count and offset? Was there anything like unexpected, or is it all pretty straightforward?
One thing that was a little unexpected is like even down to the plane airfare, like and whatnot, was like, you know, calculating on like how far, what location you were going to, and even the more connections or the more times that it wasn't just like a consistent flight. So we're actually looking at like, oh, that was a 3-stop and we had to go and do this to go that to go to that place. So it's pretty detailed, I guess, would be my being
my shocker with the POW calculator always, or just when you when you add it up, is how little snowmobiles, cars, like some of that kind of travel seems to be a little like the planes really seem to crank it out. I think that always blows me away. That number always blows me away. The plane travel it's a big one, unfortunately.
And I find everyone seems to get, especially maybe in some of the social platforms, people get really heated when they see a helicopter used for filming or riding snowboards. And we're so efficient with those machines down to the minute. And, you know, like we can only use a certain amount of hours with our deals with the heli op. So we're super conscious about how we're using that machine and using it as little as possible, essentially, because the bill racks up so high, but also, the flights that people take to further and further places really eclipse a lot of those smaller things that end up happening.
Definitely. So, you know, in making a film where we've measured our carbon footprint, where we know that our intent is to deliver a product at the end of the day, a production that is carbon neutral, does this set a new bar? Are you guys seeing this as a trend that other filmmakers are, especially in the outdoor world, are following suit on? Are there anybody, is there anybody that we're chasing that's doing a really great job of this? Do you see this as the inevitable next step for snowboard film and outdoor film production?
I don't know that we're setting the bar with this. We're certainly not the first film to offset things, and I even remember seeing films come out a few years ago and seeing a message at the end of carbon offset, and it's more just like the minimum that we can do. Like Burton is serious about wanting to be climate conscious, and to do that, like this is what we sort of have to do. And it was great to have a large project like this and be able to offset some of that cost, because we want to go out to these places, we want to do these things, we want to show the best snowboarding, but we want to do it as eco-consciously as possible, and this is just one way to do it. So there's definitely more, like we talked about, the self-powered things and all that, but this is a great place to start. So,
and I think it's what's especially important is it's more just advocating for the planet, kind of talking about I went to Washington D.C. years ago with Donna to support a carbon tax bill, and that's essentially the same thing, and I think we're kind of in support of that in a way. So it is like a quiet way to advocate and say like, hey, we can make a carbon tax and we'd be planting a lot more trees and trying to help to make a difference, So it's a bit of a way to advocate with your movie as well. So I think advocating for the planet is really like the message that I think you're giving out, and I think that's good.
I think to that point too, it just puts pressure on, other brands and film companies that, if whoever's doing it, like we all have to do this because everybody does care about our environment, and the more people that do it, the more trees we'll plant, and then we'll move on to the next thing. So
I would say another thing too, that was just, oh, sorry. I was just going to say another thing that was interesting is just, it's not like to do all of this, even personally, like your own flight and stuff, it's not super unaffordable. Like it's pretty affordable and approachable to be able to do some of this stuff. So, you know, we had a pretty big production, extensive, a lot of people, but I think, you know, it's really achievable to allocate some of those dollars and do that. You know, it's
do
not
the bare minimum. You
Yeah.
know, it seems like it's maybe like you're asking Morgan. Yeah, maybe it's the new bottom line. You kind of just do it because every little bit helps. You know, in that sense.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, every snowboarder has skin in the game. We want to keep riding up at Mount Hood on the shrinking glacier. We want to keep going to Alaska for years to come. And we want to ride our local hills where the snow line is starting to get higher and higher year by year. We're watching it happen. So yeah, we all have skin in the game, and this is us making a play. And it's also us moving forward as a group, and hopefully other production companies, other snowboarders move forward and take their own reins to make a play at this as well.
Yeah, absolutely. The most important thing is that this is a starting point, and there's a lot more to be done. I'm really excited that, you know, we're not only doing this in, you know, the film production side, but as Zach mentioned, it's an important part of the production process. It's an important part of all of our events that we do. You know, the US Open going carbon neutral was pretty amazing too. Zero waste. It's incredible. So, you know, I hope we see this become the new industry standard. You know, we all want snowboarding to help people connect to nature, but we also want to make sure that, you know, the irony of bringing somebody in and then setting them up to have an impact on the environment that provides for all of us. You know, we have to be the leaders. And I think that's what this project has really done, at least you know, the first step of.
Absolutely.
All right.
For
Well,
sure.
Thanks guys. Really appreciate you joining me for this one. Thanks to Sea Change for hosting the conversation. Thanks to Bank of the West for supporting One World and the carbon offsets that made the project carbon neutral. Thanks to Donna and the Carpenter family, and thanks to Jake for having the vision for One World and, you know, giving us the tools to bring it to life.